I almost got married, not for love, but for survival. And when it fell apart, it saved me from a mistake that would have haunted me for years. Now, when you're in survival mode, you confuse solutions with commitments. So I was roughly 25 when this happened, and it was a crazy time because I just did a really good event and things were going well. I had sold some art, and I was talking to my friend for who I've known for like 5 years. And we were really good friends, and she was in the position where she needed papers. Because one of her best friends did it, and she was like, well, I need to be able to stay in the States. And for me, I was like, well, I'll do anything for my friends. And when I meant anything, I definitely meant anything. And this was happened to just be the case. Now, during this time frame, for me, how I approach commitment is completely different, right? I do not just see it as a paperwork. And I do want to give a warning. There are so many legal repercussions if it is not a true relationship, if it's not true marriage. Now, it never got to this step that far, but that being the case, so I was around 25 when this happened. And I happened to have a friend who I've known for like 5 years, and she was in dire need of having papers because she's not from the States. She was in a position, and me as a friend, I'm like, great. I'm down to do anything for you. And if it came to this, let's do it. But the way it approached was like, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to buy an engagement. So it's like, we're doing all of these steps, and in this moment, I'm still in survival mode, not having enough, trying to figure things out. Just spent this much on an event, trying to recoup, trying to figure out what my next steps are. And when you're in this survival mode, you think that the solution will be commitment, but in reality, that's not the case. And especially when you're picking someone more for their own self-need, for someone else's personal benefit, rather than a mutual benefit for both parties. Now, it felt reasonable at the time because it's like, I've known you for so long, I've been friends with you, I love my friends, but I had to set some boundaries because it was like, I'm not going to put myself in a position where if things go left, I end up in jail or I end up fined or some way, shape, or form, right? Something goes wrong. So for me, knowing that the legal repercussions existed, I had said, well, this needs to be real. I need to feel it, or I'm not gonna rush and put myself in this situation if it's not really truly beneficial to myself. Because if I'm just doing it for you, how often would you do that same thing for me if I was put in the same position? And so I really had to test the entirety of the relationship. And so for me, over time, things started getting real, dates started to occur, and I was like, okay, wow, this is really good. This is really gonna happen. And I remember me running around with all my friends going like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get engaged, so on and so forth. And I love how enthusiastic I was because I am a person in the moment who, when I feel something, I feel it and I go with that sense of passion. Now, my mind may have changed and that's normal, because I don't feel the same way now, but in the moment I was like, great, this is gonna work out. I don't have to freaking worry about anything anymore. This is the solution to like my entire love life. That was not the case. That was definitely not the case. I was being specifically used for someone else's benefit, and now looking back on it, if I was put in their position, they wouldn't have done the same thing for me. And that's just the truth of it, and I've noticed that. And things started to break when I started to realize the things that I was forced to uphold wasn't being upheld the same way. So I'm having to buy the engagement ring. That's a normal thing that men have to do. I completely understand. But it felt more forced than it felt fluid. And because of that, it's like, as a man, I am not going to jump into this situation due to the fact that you are not acting like a partner. And now understanding, I can see where previous relationships broke from this person because how they acted within the relationship. And I've seen it's like, you're acting single, you're not really developing any trust, but you're doing it under the guise of certain things. And you're putting yourself in a position that really is not going to be a mutual beneficial case. When I looked at it and looking at it now, I'm glad it didn't work out, and it started to crack for me when certain things were being said, and realizing it's like you're trying to control the entire relationship, and it's not, and it's only for your benefit, right? Because anything that I would suggest or try to tweak would just be ignored or just kind of pushed to the side. And starting to realize that in a relationship, when you have a partner that is no longer listening to you and creates that the commitment or this foundation of the relationship is only a one-sided thing, you're going to be in a position of unhappiness. And I realized 2 days later, the relationship ended. I felt like it was a divine moment of realizing this connection wasn't true. It never really was. And it's a funny thing how God will remove the people outside of your life that are never meant for you. And He'll really put you through the ringer in order for that to be the case. Now, I avoided so many legal repercussions, so many emotional repercussions, because legally, if we had gotten interviewed and the government goes, well, this is fake, we know that the relationship isn't real, that's a fine and going to jail. That is a federal crime. I avoided that. That's good. I don't have to ever worry about that now. That's not on my conscience. And the emotional repercussions is being through the relationship in itself, realizing this individual truly loved to take more than they give and would play on the aspect that, oh, what I gave, this is enough, right? I don't really care about your boundaries. I don't really care how you're feeling. As long as I'm happy and I'm content, you don't matter. And that's when it made me realize, oh, I was actually saved rather than this entire thing feeling like a failure. And this also would have been a future I would have been trapped in, because based on the relationship, I would have had to stay in the States. I would have had to cultivate my life around it, make decisions around that. And for me, I was always aiming to leave. I never wanted to be stuck in the US. And right now I'm not. I get to look back and go, look, I'm sitting in a room in Portugal where I don't know where that person is, but I just know I'm not in the States, right? I've completely avoided a mistake and a future that would have not been me, which I would definitely recommend when you are making these decisions and you're making this insight of someone who you're marrying is, do they align and are they compatible with the future that you are building up for yourself individually? And if not, just because you have to with this person, you don't want to end up in a relationship just because of the small things. Now, I say that to say is when you're making this decision, marrying for papers should be the last thing on your mind. That should just be a challenge or an obstacle based on you and this individual. Because, again, if it is not true, the legal repercussions are so much more worse if it's discovered that it was a farce. And the emotional repercussions will leave you drained, and either one individual will go and seek out other people to cheat, because this leads to unfaithfulness because there's no actual true foundation within the relationship. It is literally just, this is what it is to benefit me. I don't really care about how you feel. That's what will happen if you place yourself in these positions just because you want a paper to get into a certain country. It's not worth it. It's not worth the emotional tax. It's not worth the financial tax unless your back is up against the wall and this is the only way. I understand, but I'm not recommending doing that. I am taking no full responsibility. So if you make that decision, that's on you. But me personally, I'm glad I didn't get stuck in that position. I didn't get stuck with this person, because now I have been able to experience so many other things that I get to look back and go, well, I'm glad I didn't do this, because now I got this, that, and the things that I wanted to develop for myself. I always look back to see if I made that decision, my freedom would have been gone. Everything that I've wanted to do, from art to travel to becoming the version of myself that I wanted to be, would have been thrown out the window. Every person that I have met within the last 5 months of traveling, that wouldn't have happened. There's a lot of people I wouldn't have known right now. There's a lot of experience that I enjoy that I would have not been able to experience because I made a decision 2 years ago and I decided to keep it just for someone else's benefit. And so in understanding this is not to sacrifice yourself for someone else's benefit, losing yourself. And especially not for papers. It's not even worth it. And the thing is, marriage is permanent. Because even getting divorced is a costly thing. So you spending this money just to get married and then spending money to leave the marriage, that's not an investment. Papers are temporary. Repercussions afterward are not even worth it. It's not worth losing yourself over a document. Trust me, there are so many other options. There are better options rather than the easy way, because sometimes things that look easy tend to have harder consequences afterwards. And I realized throughout this entire relationship for myself, I was truly in love and I was diving into that. But what was reciprocated back wasn't love, it was just what I could provide, simply it. And the minute there wasn't a longevity to it being provided, the relationship ended, and it was okay, great. I saved myself out of a situation. It didn't really connect, and now I'm in a safer place. Now, the person tried to still be friends. No, we can't cross certain boundaries and then expect to go backwards. That doesn't work in life. So understanding that when you start doing things, you can't jump over certain lines and think, oh, well, that was a mistake. I didn't really like the circumstances, so let me just go back to how it was. You have to understand when you make certain decisions, you are giving up certain past things in order for some risk to happen, either better or worse to happen. In totality, what I've came to a realization is I didn't dodge love. I dodged a life that wasn't for me. And so now I'm in the moment of the life that I want, continuously working towards and putting myself in positions where it benefits me in the long run, rather than looking for solutions in the short term, thinking that it's going to solve all my problems. Especially commitment will not solve the issues that you have. So again, now as I say, don't ever put yourself in this position. I highly do not recommend it. If the love is true, then paper should be the last thing on your mind. The relationship should be much longer than ours was. And looking for the long-term benefit that once you make this decision and you start signing papers, this is a commitment that you are committed to. Because the moment that you're looking at it from a monetary perspective, in the long run, it's going to fuck you over, emotionally or financially. In one of the shape or form, it's going to mess you up in one shape or form. It's going to mess you up in one way or another. And I would not recommend anyone else to be placed in that position. So once again, that's how I almost got married. Not for love, but for someone else's survival. I would not recommend it. And I once again, I want to appreciate each and every one of you for staying in the story. If you've had something like this or you have something similar, please drop a comment down below. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I appreciate you being this long. Can't wait to see you the next time.